The Grand Hall of Dominion Command glittered with crystalline authority. 12 alien figures hovered above molten obsidian floors, their bulbous eyes twitching in synchronized satisfaction. A galactic execution had just occurred, and the universe, for a breathless moment, seemed quieter. 70 plasma rounds crooned high, Executor Uruval, his voice a silken vibration through translator nodes. At point-blank range, she absorbed each shot with nothing but that absurd leather coat and what I believe is chewing gum. Soft chuckles rippled through the ranks of the Galactic Empire's War Council, each laugh a hiss, a whistle, a croak depending on the species. Commander Varric, an insectoid strategist with iridescent mandibles, clicked in agreement. Typical human delusion. Duct tape and idioms do not constitute armor. Uruval raised a violet tentacle, signaling the hologram hovering above the table. It replayed the moment with forensic precision. General Sterling Monroe, Earth's most feared combatant, standing amid rubble, a smear of red across her face, surrounded by gun barrels. Then came the firing. 70 pulses of blue-white death hammering her center mass. Her body dropped like a sack of spoiled meat. She is, as the humans say, Uruval sneered, very dead. No one noticed the flicker. A single line of static zipped across the hologram, dismissed as interference. The celebration was beginning. Flutes of ether wine were extended, and a toast prepared. 17 seconds later, the lights failed. The crystalline lattice of the ceiling cracked with a sonic boom as a boot struck it from above. Sparks rained down, and the hollow projector stuttered violently. A shape dropped into view, landing with a feral grace onto the obsidian floor, cracking it under her mass. Steam hissed from her cybernetic joints. Blood, human blood, trailed down one arm, past broken armor and scorched sin skin. General Sterling Monroe stood before them, clutching a half-empty can of Mountain Dew Code Red, breathing like a predator who hadn't decided who to eat first. "Well," she drawled, lips curled in something feral. "Y'all finished patting yourselves on the back?" Silence. Universal perfect. Even the room's atmosphere regulators seemed unsure whether to exhale. Uruval blinked. You are supposed to be dead? Shot 70 times? Yeah, I noticed." She gestured vaguely at her ruined side. "Stings like a mother. But hey, next time try aiming." Sterling's voice was dust and razors, low and steeped in the bourbon of too many battles. She looked like Earth's vengeance given flesh. Streaks of ash across her forehead, burned lines across her jaw, and eyes that hadn't seen peace in 2 decades. Her coat was half melted. Her left boot was missing its heel, and she carried herself like she'd walked out of an apocalypse because there was one more idiot who needed a punch. The Empire's guards rushed forward, and she held up one hand, flicked a switch. 4 of them exploded. Not metaphorically. Bits of alien armor clanged to the floor like hailstones. "Pressure mines," she explained, swigging from her can. "I left them in the hallway. Sorry. Actually, not sorry. You shot me in the spleen." Varric took an involuntary step backward. She shouldn't be able to move. "Our reports. You based your intel on biology textbooks. You forgot to factor in spite." She took a breath, rolling her shoulder with a pained wince. "That, and I'm wired 6 ways to Sunday. You think Earth built generals without backups." Behind her, the command doors hissed open again, and a metallic sphere floated in, blinking with digital eyes. "Sidekick, mark everyone in this room as optional murder targets. Excluding me, obviously." The drone beeped. "Marked. Optional snark protocols enabled." Uruval's voice wobbled now. "Why are you here, Monroe? You survived. You could have vanished." She looked at him like a disappointed gym coach. "You brought this on yourselves. All I wanted was 3 weeks off. A hammock. Maybe some Johnny Cash. But no, you goons sent assassins. Ruined my ranch. Shot my dog. You woke me up." Another pause. Then she finished the drink and crushed the can between one hand with a soft metallic hiss. "You don't shoot a Death Worlder and miss. You start a war." There had been whispers, of course. Among the Outer Rim colonies, among the pirate rings that still owed Earth respect. Rumors of General Monroe, of how she once threw a Zentari war chief into a volcano because he interrupted her breakfast, of how she ended the siege on Eris 9 with a wrench, a radio, and a quote from Die Hard, of how her body had more cybernetics than bones and more rage than wiring. The room finally reacted. Blasters drew. Shields activated. Emergency protocols roared to life. Sterling tilted her head. Cute. Then she moved. What happened next could only be described in broken physics and blurred vision. One moment she was a wounded soldier in the center of the room, the next a weaponized storm. She dropped low, sweeping a foot under Varric's thorax, sending the insectoid sprawling into a thermal conduit. Her right arm, fully cybernetic, popped open, revealing a micro-flamethrower she used to cut down a pair of guards mid-charge. Uruval activated a shield, but Sidekick had already hacked it, rerouting its energy into the lights, which shattered in a shower of glass. The room stank of ozone, blood, and scorched arrogance. She advanced on Uruval, who now backed toward the console, his tentacles flailing, trying to summon help. "I studied you," he gasped. "You are irrational, emotional, petty." She grinned, showing bloody teeth. "Damn right. You wanted to dissect humanity? Let me give you a lesson for free." She grabbed him by the throat, one massive cybernetic hand closing around his elongated neck. The lights flared red. The building shook. She didn't squeeze. Yet. Uruval wheezed, voice breaking. "What do you want?" She leaned in close, whispering, eyes aflame with fury and firelight. "I want you to remember the moment your empire made its worst mistake. I want you to tell them, all of them, that Earth isn't just backwater. We're your goddamn karma. You don't get to shoot 70 rounds and walk away." The moment hovered, crystalline, endless. And then she let go. He collapsed, gasping. 17 seconds, she said aloud, turning to the council. "That's how long your celebration lasted." Behind her, the drone played a clip from the A-Team. Sterling turned to leave, boots echoing in the silence. As the doors slid shut behind her, Sidekick called out cheerfully, "Y'all done messed up." Back in the command room, no one dared move. Above them, a new warning lit the display. Human presence detected. System compromised. In one corner, Varric whimpered, "What happens now?" Uruval, voice hollow, whispered, Now we run." And across 12 systems, alarms began to scream. The dreadnought loomed in orbit like a floating cathedral of tyranny, its hull ribbed with weapons and whispering power. Inside, klaxons rang in alien tongues, and red warning glyphs flickered like blood dripping across walls of black steel. In its center, deep in the command vein, Commander Uruval stood in a puddle of his own fear, staring at the crackling remains of the central control table. "She boarded us," he muttered, mouth dry. "She boarded this ship." "Correction," said the tactical AI above him in a tone laced with static. "She is currently in the central elevator shaft, traveling approximately 45 meters per second. With a sledgehammer." Uruval blinked. "A what?" The AI brought up the security feed. There she was, General Sterling Monroe, descending the inner shaft like a meteor of death, gripping a steel sledge with both hands, boots aimed downward, trench coat flaring like the wings of an old earth demon. Sparks chased her descent as she screamed through levels, a blur of blood and old grudges. "Shut down the shaft. Activate plasma seals." They were removed, the AI said awkwardly. She used C4 and chewing gum. Also, she overrode the lift system with a 1994 Game Boy. Uruval stared blankly. What is a Game Boy? A crash ended the debate. The doors to engineering ruptured inward with the sound of splintering gods. Monroe entered like a storm in boots, swinging the sledgehammer into the first armed soldier she saw, sending him airborne into a conduit that exploded in a flash of blue. 8 guards opened fire. She ducked behind a control console, kicked it hard, and sent it skidding forward like a battering ram. The control panel crushed 2 of them before she leapt onto it, rolled forward, and used the momentum to launch herself into the cluster of aliens with a low, growling laugh. Uruval hit the alarm for interior lockdown. Bulkheads slammed shut. Force fields shimmered blue. He locked the command throne with a private passphrase and called the nearest remaining battalion. "She must not reach the bridge," he ordered. "She is wounded. Tire her. Delay her. And for all things sacred, do not engage in banter." On deck 9, Sterling stood amid a field of groaning bodies, blood soaking into her torn shirt. A nasty gash ran along her ribs, but her eyes blazed with the same manic glee she wore during planetary invasions. "Sidekick," she said, slapping her drone's underside as it buzzed beside her. "Patch me up and cue up some theme music. I want something motivating. Eye of the Tiger or Highway to Hell? Surprise me." The AI released a puff of disinfectant and injected coagulant into her side. Sterling winced, cracked her neck, and moved on, boots thudding toward the corridor junction. Another detachment waited at the intersection. 10 soldiers in full mech suits, laser-bladed halberds raised. Their armor gleamed with imperial sigils. Sterling paused, looked them over, and smirked. "You boys look expensive." Then she pulled a pin from her belt and rolled something across the floor. The soldiers flinched, raising shields. But the object didn't explode. It beeped. Then it spoke. "Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a human children's toy from Earth. Want to learn about teeth?" Before the soldiers could respond, Barry the toy bear detonated in a burst of concussive sonic waves. Sterling dove through the blast cloud, swinging the sledge like a medieval knight with attitude problems. She hit one in the helmet, cracking the visor. Another tried to flank her, but she grabbed his halberd mid-swing, twisted, and buried it in his own chest. Sparks and hydraulic fluid painted the wall. The corridor fell quiet again. Behind her, Sidekick whirred nervously. "You've sustained 47 injuries. Your pain receptors are spiking." Sterling wiped blood from her mouth and nodded. "Means I'm still alive." She walked over a broken mech helmet and tore a power cable from the wall. Sparks rained down. She wrapped the wire around her arm like a snake and pressed forward. On the bridge, Uruval watched in disbelief. "She is not human. She is a problem-given limbs." Varric, patching his wounds from earlier, croaked. "Send the elites. All of them." Uruval's jaw trembled. "I already did." She just introduced one of them to the ventilation system. As if on cue, the door to the bridge warped outward, bulging like an overfilled lung. Sterling didn't bother with explosives this time. She kicked the door clean off its hinges. Uruval raised a plasma pistol and fired. She dodged it, caught the edge of the shot with her sledgehammer, and flung the heat sideways into the ceiling, where it ignited a fire suppression unit. Then she stepped onto the bridge, every motion deliberate. "This is the part," she said casually, "where you beg." Uruval's remaining guards aimed, but Sidekick disabled their weapons with a chirp and a well-timed pulse. Energy packs exploded. One alien screamed and flung his rifle into the air. "Sidekick," she said, glancing sideways, "record this." Recording. Angle of impact. Dramatic. She swung the hammer once, just once, and sent Uruval's pistol clattering away. He backed into the central console, hands raised, trying to form words with a tongue gone dry. "You're here to kill me." Sterling cracked her neck. "Wasn't the plan." Uruval's eyes flared. "Then what is?" She stepped forward, leaned on the sledge like a preacher's staff. "I want you alive, Commander. Alive and broken. I want you to crawl back to your empire and tell them what happens when you try to erase someone like me." He sneered. You think your legend frightens us." She tilted her head. "You shot me 70 times. I'll shoot you 70 more." She grinned. "That's the spirit." Her fist cracked into his jaw. Not hard enough to kill, just enough to remove a molar and some pride. Uruval crumpled, moaning, as the ship's systems began to fall under her control. Sidekick pinged a list of decrypted pathways and full-access schematics. "Looks like they kept a copy of Earth's entire military structure," Sidekick mused. "And a folder titled Weird Human Idioms. Delete the files. Replace them with Shrek 2 and a virus." "Already done." Sterling walked to the main control panel, ignoring the smoldering consoles and the stink of melted circuits. She tapped a few commands, then rerouted the ship's path. "Where are we going?" Sidekick asked. "To the Citadel." Empire HQ. The drone beeped. That's not a stealth mission. I'm not feeling stealthy. Behind her, Uruval groaned. You're insane. She glanced over her shoulder. Insane's a cute word. Earth uses bigger ones now. Like retribution. Like reckoning. Like mom. As the ship turned, artificial gravity dipped, and the stars outside twisted into new constellations. Her hand hovered over the dreadnought's intercom. Open a channel, she said. Galaxy-wide. Are you sure? She cracked her knuckles. Yeah. Let's announce the warm-up's over. Sidekick activated the feed. And with a smile, Sterling spoke. 70 shots. 17 seconds. Still breathing. I'm not the worst thing coming your way. I'm just the one who's early. The broadcast cut. In silence, the dreadnought barreled toward the heart of the Empire, carrying one general, one drone, and a sledgehammer soaked in blood. Aboard the Empire's Citadel-class core station, home to the Senate of 70 Systems, the largest tactical archive in known space, and more than 400 types of security protocol, alarms had begun singing in 12 dialects of panic. The dreadnought Vehement Mercy had gone dark. Not silent, just dark. Comms were open, power still burned, propulsion still surged toward the Citadel, but no one was answering. And the last recorded footage broadcast across several unsecured subchannels was unsettling in its simplicity. General Sterling Monroe, leaning against a plasma-scarred console, sipping something green, smiling faintly and whispering, "Boo." It wasn't a message. It was a promise. Senator Kravix, a spheriform Arlock with a face that resembled melted glass and a patience for human affairs that measured in nanoseconds, turned to the Senate chamber's high-feed monitor and demanded, "What is this obsession with Earth? One malfunctioning primate wipes out a cruiser, and suddenly our entire defense council flutters like panic poultry." Admiral Vez, 3 meters of chitin and scar tissue, kept his mandibles tight. "She's not malfunctioning. She's motivated. Explain to me," Kravix hissed, "why this single Death Worlder cannot be stopped." Vez didn't reply. He didn't have to. The Chamber's historian AI, a construct named Vox Historiae, answered with a calm tone and no trace of satisfaction. Records indicate that multiple attempts to contain General Monroe have ended in disaster. The Vonak ambush? 3 regiments lost. The Rixer prison siege? She weaponized dental floss and sarcasm. The breach of Hollow Sky? She arrived with no weapons, left with a warship. Kravix throbbed with irritation. These are anecdotes. Propaganda. 70 rounds, Vez growled. At point blank. 70. Her body hit the floor, and she still got up 17 seconds later with a drink and a drone. You can't spin that. Then why not study her? Another senator chimed in, voice hopeful and dim. Dissect her. She's already been dissected, Vez said. By us. And you know what we found? That her bones were reinforced with carbon thread. Her brain had backdoor AI links. Her muscles ran on synthetic adrenaline and God knows what Earth called redneck biotech. The woman has parts made from tractor engines and playground materials. Kravix clicked irritably. This is absurd. Vox Historiae's tone sharpened. It may be absurd, Senator, but it is also reality. At that moment, on the bridge of the very dreadnought barreling toward them, Sterling Monroe stood before the main display, Sidekick circling her head like a bored hawk. 3 minutes to Citadel space, the drone chirped. Sterling cracked her knuckles. Good. Long enough for a lecture. She opened a secure channel. It was a relic tech, a frequency banned by the Empire after it intercepted a recording of Earth's first unified war broadcast, Top Gun. But humans had a way of remembering things they weren't supposed to. Galactic Empire, she said, voice calm. We need to have a talk. The Citadel lit up. Every senator, every commander, every administrator leaned forward. Across the galaxy, those who feared her and those who idolized her listened in. You tried to kill me. Again. And I get it, you're scared. We're scary. But let me clarify why you failed. See, the problem with killing Earthlings isn't the hardware. It's not the guns or tech or even our charming disregard for safety regulations. It's that we don't die like you do. She paced the bridge, each step a slow build in pressure. You think it's about surviving wounds. It's not. We survive failure. We survive shame. We survive history. And when you shoot us down, we don't stop. We recalculate. We come back meaner, weirder, and with duct tape. Uruval, still bound to the med chair, behind her groaned. You're mad. Thanks, she replied without turning. You made me this way. The transmission crackled across sectors. I'm not the last of us. Just the one closest. I'm the part that shows up when you push too far. I'm the punchline to a joke you didn't understand. On the Citadel, Vez leaned forward and whispered, She's not threatening us. She's teaching us. Back on the bridge, Sidekick pinged a new file. We've intercepted the Citadel's archives. They have a folder labeled Primitive World, Earth. Shall I read some? Sterling raised an eyebrow. Culture chaotic. Population unrefined. Strengths persistence, unpredictability. Weaknesses nostalgia, carbohydrates, irrational loyalty to fictional characters. Sterling grinned. That last one's true. The drone flipped to the next entry. Most relevant entry. Earth subjects exhibit extreme psychological resistance. One female operative survived 92 hours of torture by reciting lines from a sitcom called Friends. Sterling snorted. That was Angela. Girl had steel in her lungs and way too much love for Chandler. Another ping. Update, Sidekick announced. The Citadel is hailing us. Put him on. The hologram blinked alive. Kravix's face distorted with barely restrained disgust. General Monroe, you are violating 67 Imperial Accords. You've taken a dreadnought. You're an outlaw. Sterling tilted her head. You shot me 70 times. That was authorized engagement. You kidnapped my dog. That was... You bombed my barn. There was a pause. Kravix glanced off-screen, conferred with someone, then looked back. We did not know that was yours. Yeah, well, it was. And now I'm here. I don't want your throne. I don't want your planet. I want you to remember what happens when you poke a sleeping tiger with a stun baton. She leaned in close, and the audio signal distorted with the sheer force of her voice. You think humans are unstable. You haven't met our grandmas. Sidekick beeped again. 10 seconds to Citadel perimeter. Kravix panicked. If you breach that boundary, we'll retaliate. Full defense grid. No more warnings. Sterling rolled her neck. Okay. That's it. She looked into the feed, eyes alight with something more than fire. Here's the problem with killing Earthlings, Kravix. You never stop at just one. You always think we're isolated, that we're unimportant. But humans? We echo. You kill one, and 1,000 others wake up wondering what made her scream. And with that, she cut the feed. The Citadel's grid flared as defense systems spun online. Cannons the size of stadiums rotated toward the incoming dreadnought. Sidekick's voice dropped to a whisper. They've locked on. Good. She strapped her harness and typed a final code into the main console. Uruval looked up weakly. What are you doing? Sending a reminder. The dreadnought's exterior peeled open, hatch by hatch, port by port, as every signal beacon it carried activated. Not weapons, transmissions, and not in war code. Earth songs, Earth shows, Earth static, Top Gun, Independence Day, Jurassic Park, Armageddon. The Citadel's systems choked on the flood of signals. The defense grid hesitated, briefly unsure whether it was facing a cultural attack or an accidental nostalgia bomb. Vez stood in the chamber and whispered what many now felt. She's not just a soldier. She's the ghost of a planet we didn't understand. Outside, the dreadnought cut engines. Sterling looked at the stars. Let's see if they still remember the punchline. Then she opened every channel in the quadrant. All units. Earth isn't extinct. We're not hiding. And I've got just enough spike to go around. Behind her, Sidekick said softly, You really think they'll listen? She exhaled. No. But they'll remember. And somewhere in the Citadel, a senator dropped his datapad and whispered the only words that mattered now. She's not here to win. She's here to remind us who they are. The dreadnought began moving again, slow, deliberate, as if daring them to shoot first. The stars held their breath. The Citadel's core rang, with alarms pitched too high for human ears. Emergency glyphs flickered across every curved wall and suspended data tower like blood-red halos. Dozens of alien senators shouted over one another, their mouths, mandibles, and membranes trembling as the dreadnought hovered, impossibly still, just outside the defense perimeter. She hadn't fired. She hadn't invaded. She hadn't even broken formation. She didn't have to. In the war room buried below the Senate chamber, Admiral Vez paced with clawed feet clinking against black alloy. "She wants us to shoot first," he muttered. "She's baiting us." "She's bluffing," Kravik said, arms folded, face shiny with rage and anxiety. "That dreadnought is half damaged. The systems are primitive. She's just one Earthling. She won't breach the Citadel." "She doesn't need to," Vez growled. "She already has." From the central holotank, footage streamed from a dozen planetary systems. Empire colonies with communications scrambled, broadcast towers hijacked, databanks fried by what looked like corrupted Earth memes. In one case, the planet-wide education AI had been forced into a recursive loop of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and now refused to issue curriculum updates unless every speech ended with "be excellent to each other." Sterling Monroe hadn't even fired a shot at them yet, but already the Empire was unraveling at the edges. On the Dreadnought's bridge, Sterling stood perfectly still, one hand on the navigation rail, her eyes locked on the Citadel's spire through reinforced glass. She wasn't smiling anymore. There was no time for it now. Her knuckles were white. Her voice, when it came, was low and iron flat. "Sidekick, begin override." The drone buzzed a confirmation. Citadel firewalls resisting. Resist harder. Outside, dozens of defense turrets twisted, whirring as they attempted to find a clear lock. Each one pinged Monroe's dreadnought but hesitated. Their protocols hadn't seen behavior like this. A vessel this size didn't just drift toward the core station without shields up. It didn't broadcast human radio. It didn't loop sitcoms in place of warnings. And it didn't hum. But hers did. Somewhere inside the ship, a vibration rose like a storm waiting to break open. A machine spun up, slow, guttural, ancient. Uruval, bound and still dazed in the corner, lifted his head. "What did you activate?" Sterling didn't look at him. A reminder. His voice broke. "Of what?" She finally turned, eyes bloodshot, face cut and cracked and furious. "That the war never ended. You just stopped noticing we were still fighting it." The screen on the bridge flashed green. The override had worked. The Citadel's primary docking arms disengaged, briefly mistaking her dreadnought for an incoming capital envoy. A small trick. An old backdoor left in the system back when Earth was still seen as a curious backwater. Harmless, interesting, ignored. Now, the Empire was remembering why humans were supposed to be monitored. Monroe stepped forward and keyed the intercom. "This is General Sterling Monroe. I am entering the Citadel. Your defenses are confused. Your AI is compromised. And I'm tired." The silence on the line was deep. "You took my squad. You took my leave. You took my goddamn dog. And now I'm taking your hub. This isn't vengeance. It's a public service." On the Citadel, chaos reached crescendo. Admiral Vez punched a code into the wall panel. "Activate the Eternals. All of them." Kravix paled. "They haven't been used in decades. They were prototypes. Then they'll die like the rest." In the inner sanctum of the Citadel, 3 humanoid forms lit up, silver-bodied, fast-twitch, designed from human templates, but engineered with Empire refinement. The Monra clones, based on Sterling's body scans from years ago, built to be faster, stronger, cleaner. But not one had her rage, or her sense of humor. Sterling docked without resistance. The dreadnought sealed behind her like a vault shutting on history. She stepped into the Citadel's reception tunnel with a sledgehammer strapped across her back and a rifle slung lazily at her hip. The air inside the Citadel was sterile, scentless, engineered to be neutral. She wrinkled her nose. It smelled like bureaucracy. Sidekick drifted close. 3 hostiles approaching. Speed accelerated. Weaponry edge-focused. Combat profiles resemble you. Sterling raised one eyebrow. Of course they built clones. Of course. The Monra clones arrived like bullets dressed in chrome, leaping from mezzanine to floor with flawless tactical form. Their faces were hers, but cleaner, untouched by war. Their movements lacked weight, like they were mimicking something they didn't understand. The first clone attacked, bladed fists slicing toward her ribs. Sterling blocked with a sledgehammer, sparks flying, steel shrieking. "You're fast," she grunted. "But you're missing something." The second came at her from the flank, spinning, mechanical, fluid. Sterling rolled, came up under it, and drove the hammer into its spine. It crumpled. The third clone hesitated. "I'm not a formula," she said, walking slowly toward it. "You can't program spite, or grief, or the way I hold a grudge like religion." The clone struck again. Too fast. It sliced across her arm, deep enough to burn. She growled, shoved forward, and tackled it against the wall. Metal cracked. Sparks flew. "I bled for Earth," she whispered, face inches from its artificial sneer. "You just downloaded the script." She crushed its head against the wall. Once. Twice. Then silence. Her breath rasped as she stood among the broken copies of herself, one hand pressed to her side. Blood mixed with oil. Her coat was shredded. Psychic. Status. All threats neutralized. "You look wrecked." "I'm warmed up." She turned toward the central elevator. It scanned her. For a moment, nothing happened. Then opened. Sterling rode it to the top, past diplomatic floors, defense matrices, and memory vaults. At the peak, in the throne room of the Empire, waited Kravix and Vez, flanked by guards who trembled more from expectation than training. She stepped into the hall like a broken icon. Every limp, every scab, every ragged breath screamed war made flesh. Kravix took one step forward. "You will not survive this." "I'm not here to survive," she said, lifting her sledgehammer. "I'm here to finish the sentence you idiot started." Vez didn't wait. He lunged. She ducked, swung low. The hammer caught his leg, snapped it sideways. He roared, but she was already moving, boots slamming into his torso, sending him into the wall. Guards scattered. 2 raised blasters. She shot one in the kneecap and elbowed the second across the throat with the butt of her rifle. Kravix ran. She led him. The room smelled like victory, and fire, and ozone. Sidekick drifted beside her. "You've won." "No," she said, eyes scanning the stars beyond the glass dome. "I just gave them a new bedtime story." Sidekick paused. "They'll retaliate. I hope they do." She walked to the console, typed a single code, Unity Ring Exodus. It broadcast through every line of Empire communication. "Do not provoke Earth. We're not alone, and we don't forget." Then she keyed the final override. Behind her, the Citadel's vaults began to burn. Sterling Monroe turned once, looked at the stars through the firelight. "This," she whispered, "was just the warm-up." And then she disappeared into the smoke, leaving the Empire gasping, reeling, and, for the first time in generations, afraid of Earth again.